After Roe, conservatives set their sights on ending no-fault divorce laws. We know they want to get rid of gay marriage. They have explicitly said that they want to get rid of court protections for gay marriage and for interracial marriage. That was explicit. That's not like lefty analysis. That's like really, really, really straightforward. They said it. If you want to get into like the origins of marriage and monogamy, this is an anthropological subject, right? We're going back thousands of years. And one of the, in my opinion, most compelling explanations for the origins of monogamy and marriages are of hierarchy and hereditary wealth transfers. Now, to be clear, okay, because everyone gets mad about this, all right, everyone gets mad, so I want to be really clear from the get-go, okay? There's nothing wrong with being monogamous. Some people, many people, just gravitate towards monogamy and have for as long as humans have existed, okay? It's not unnatural. It's not like a socio-political construct that's, totally artificial. Like, none of that, okay? But when I'm talking about monogamy, what I'm talking about is like the moral expectation that a person should have only one partner. The idea that that's like a default, natural, and moreover, morally necessary state of affairs. You know, one of the more compelling, and Engels wrote on this, one of the more compelling narratives for how the idea of monogamy as an institution and marriage, which kind of they're very related to each other, came to be a thing, was the idea of parentage, right? If you don't have socially enforced monogamy, you don't really know whose kids are whose, right? I mean, all the tribal hotties are banging around, babe. Okay, you're not. Listen, you may have slept with the 6'2" Amazoness baddie, all right, but you're not the only guy who did. Okay, it's creamy up in there. Who knows whose kids are coming out of who, right? But if you want to get hereditary with things, say you're a shaman or a tribal chief, or a or like a tribal chieftain or whatever, and you want to have kids who are, yours in a biological sense, you have to keep track of who's slamming who. And if you extend that, of course, like you can see a really obvious example of this would be the concept of bastard children and legitimate versus illegitimate heirs in European nobility, right? Because back in the days of like kings and queens, it was actually really important who in the royal family married who and who sired which children, because hereditary succession was used as the like direct logic of who got the crown. And of course people would invade and take over anyway, but in a vacuum, at least, that was the system, a hereditary monarchy, which means that when the king inevitably slept around and had bastard children, they were I think the term used by the British crown is legally dead, meaning that from a legal perspective, when it comes to the succession of at least the British crown, they did not exist. They were not viable candidates. So we have moved away from monogamy as a social norm thing a lot in the past, like, God, 20 years? Seriously, a lot of it has just been dating apps. So if you go on Tinder right now or Grinder or whatever else, okay, and you're young and you're in like a major city, okay, I swear to God, half the people my age or younger are ethically non-monogamous. Okay, people are getting around. And interestingly, people are having less sex than ever, which is kind of a weird and seemingly counterintuitive set of social patterns. But it is what it is. I'm sure that can be rationed out with rationalized out with a bit of thought. But whatever. Okay, look. The point is that the increasing prominence of divorce, of people not getting married, of getting married later, of having fewer children, these change social patterns. And the patterns that conservatives really don't want to change have to do with the domination of women and the patriarchal family structure. And that's exactly what we're seeing here in an attack on both no-fault divorce laws and contraception. See, the women's rights movements back in the 60s, they skyrocketed in prominence and effectiveness when the pill became a thing. Because as it turns out, it's actually a lot easier to be an independent girl boss when you don't get pregnant like every other time you have sex. I mean, condoms are a thing, but they're not as reliable, and people misuse them, and people just don't put them on and lie about it. Whereas the pill is, a bit more consistent. So the ability to independently control your fertility has been pretty important to giving women the ability to live more autonomous lives? Because otherwise, right, if you get pregnant, you don't want to have an abortion, which again, they also want abortion to be illegal. You're kind of saddled with the guy, right? Like, kids are really expensive. And I fully believe, by the way, that the conservative attack on affordable health care is always in part also been rooted on making childcare incredibly expensive because that necessitates, pair bonding. It's really difficult to be a single parent. We're seeing this develop like really rapidly too, this attack on people's rights. This article came out in mid to late 2022. It's not a new article, but here, I mean, look, just read for a sec, okay? Yeah, I've been talking. Article, take it away. Following the Supreme Court's elimination of the federal right to abortion in June, conservatives have taken aim at other fundamental protections, such as same-sex marriage and access to contraception. But some on the right are resurfacing a different, long-simmering project, stigmatizing divorce, including, in some instances, attacking no-fault divorce laws. No-fault divorce in the U.S. was first adopted. Oh, here's Tim Pool. No-fault divorce has destroyed men's confidence in marriage. Men don't... You know what? It's been a while. Who needs MediaMatters.org, okay? What have they ever done? .org. Like, we need to get our news from these institutional sources. Let's go right to the beating heart of journalism, okay? Tim Pool, what's up? No-fault divorce has destroyed men's confidence in marriage. Men don't want to get married anymore. I gotta say, if your confidence in marriage is being destroyed by the idea that the woman could leave you, that seems like you didn't have much confidence in the marriage to begin with. Perhaps this is a skill issue? Perhaps you were risless? I don't know. I'm just suggesting. Personal take, by the way. I think in the absence of any coercive systems, like forcing people to stay together or like economic incentives to stay married, I think that the number of people who could stay married for life from like, I don't know, 25 to death, I think that's like 1 in 10 generously. And I don't think that's because monogamy is broken or anything. People just change as they get older. And the odds of two people changing and their lives coursing in the same direction, like keeping the same basic sets of values and compatibility, that's a pretty miraculous thing, to be honest with you. I have a lot of respect for that. I'm no cold-hearted bastard here. When I see old couples that are still clearly in love with each other, I think that's really, really sweet. I just don't think that's the norm, like, at all. I think it's okay. I'll say, I'll open to it. Obviously, children always benefit from having a stable household, but when it comes just to the parents, I don't think there's anything wrong with being married for a decade and then divorcing, like, necessarily. I mean, if you're really good together for a decade, a whole decade of your life, your finite lifespan, a whole decade, and then things change and you split apart, that doesn't necessarily mean that things have failed, Obviously, the marriage thing, like till death do us part, kind of indicates that you're supposed to stay together forever, but it's like friendships. Friendships don't necessarily have to last your entire life. They last as long as they last, and as long as you got something from that, there's something of value there. Anyway, look, life is hard, and no set of legal or social institutions will ever change that. Tim, take it away. What do you got? I clicked twice, which is not what you want to do. If you
maybe the issue is no-fault divorce then, yes. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, yes. So I can understand kind of like what you both are saying, like, and I as well, like, I don't have a prenup. I wouldn't want to be, enter into marriage that way. But I can also understand where, for a man or a woman that had built up a lot of wealth, and we're now getting into this, legal contract that's, supposed to represent a spiritual commitment. But then
I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with the prenup. It indicates a lack of trust, but like, depending on the circumstances, I think it's an acceptable thing to do. Sometimes it's done out of paranoia and fear or whatever, but I don't think it's necessarily bad.
We're making it a legal contract, and part of that legal contract isn't structured around a lifelong agreement like it used to be, because we got rid of because now we have no-fault divorce. So I could understand getting rid of no-fault divorce.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, and I think also,
the courts are heavily biased in favor of women.
Yeah.
To an insane.
This is not true. It used to be the case. Family courts have long been biased in favor of women because people like Tim Pool have said that women are naturally better child raisers, which means that naturally, when family courts are deciding where the kids would go, they would go to the women. But that's not true anymore. Family courts now actually rule equally often in favor of men and women, but men are far more likely to say they don't want to keep the kids. So the kids are far more likely to go to the women because the men want them to. The bias used to exist, but no longer. Now it's just men being kind of shitty. So yeah, that's not good.
Same degree, especially with children, man.
Well, you know, it's funny because we live in this culture where no-fault divorce is the law.
Why does this guy look like Harry Potter to me? Is anyone else seeing that? Okay, I know it's like a long shot, and I can't see chat, so I don't know if you're agreeing with me or not. Does anyone else think he looks a little bit like Daniel Radcliffe? Like just a teeny bit?
Of the land. And people will say things
Maybe.
like, well, look how often marriage ends in
roasting
divorce. How could you ever be in favor of social structures which disincentivize that or would, you know, dissuade people from getting divorced? But I think what people often miss is if young folks know they're in an environment where divorce is not an option, I firmly believe they're going to be more careful about who they choose to marry. And I think also people are going to be more careful.
We love freedom, motherfuckers, when it comes to literally any social issue. I have no idea how people like this, I don't know who this person is, but like Timpool, can talk about like freedom this, freedom that, and it's like, okay, well, if the state will force them into this lifelong contract with no way of rescinding it, then maybe, like, okay, yeah, is that good though? Like, they never seem to, the thing that makes me think that a lot of this is just cons want to women is that I've never even heard them acknowledge the possibility of a woman just being in a miserable, abusive relationship she can't get out of. It's not that they haven't given me answers to it. It's that I haven't even heard them bring it up, because I think that's what they're thinking of too, but they're thinking of it in like a positive way. I've never heard a con be like, listen, I think no-fault divorce has been really destructive. I know that a lot of women suffer under like abusive relationships, and I do think there are ways to legally structure things so that that can be considered a fault in a no-fault like relationship, but that just doesn't come up, right? Steven Crowder was just talking about how he wants his wife to be forced by the state to stay with him. He said it like 4 times in a row. But like, okay, so like any abuse, what about infidelity, right? Like what crosses the line? And again, like as was the case with historical like divorce laws, you can just fabricate a fault, right? Like, all you have to do if you're in a if you're at a you need a fault divorce situation is you just like fabricate the fault. It's not hard to do, even if only one person is participating. It's just dumb. Like, why are you trying to force people into lifelong contracts?
Careful about their decision making in general when it comes to sexuality. A lot of people will start sleeping with someone, and as you've mentioned, that releases oxytocin and other hormones that bond you. And there are a lot of couples that end up together because they're sexually engaging with one another and they're bonding, but they're not actually really good for each other. And then at some point in the marriage, when the novelty of that person wears off, they get divorced. So I think it's not just that we have no fault divorce in people who...
Well, maybe we shouldn't push people into marriage unless they're willing to make that commitment. Maybe one of the issues here is conservatives who say that you can't like be in a relationship with somebody and have sex unless you're married. Like what they're saying is, hey, people are treating marriage too lightly, and then they'll go and say, yeah, by the way, like don't have sex until marriage, and also like if you're together living together, like you should be married. It's like, well, what do you want? What they want is 18-year-olds getting married really quickly because they're horny and desperate to be with somebody, and then being locked into that relationship their entire life, because that's the way it's been for a long time. Or maybe they want to go back even further, where they want like 22-year-old like tradesmen to be given 16-year-old farm girls along with a dowry, so they can start like a farming business. They probably want that too. They want a mixture of both. Okay, they want the white picket fence and they want the child brides. They want it. Okay. They want a synthesis of these values.
Would otherwise be staying married or getting divorced. I think they're actually making poor choices about who they end up marrying because of the current status quo.
A starter marriage. It's like a phrase.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
Then don't push them to marry.
I don't know. It's something I've heard young women talk about is like a starter marriage, or it's even worse. But I've heard young women say like, first marriage is for money, second marriage is for love.
Wow.
Yeah. I know. It's ugly.
And this is...
I wonder what social values might lead women to do that. I wonder if there's any way. It's like imagine like looking at this and going, "Hey, people are marrying for money rather than for love. The best way to fix this would be to force people to stay in marriages forever and make women completely dependent on men." ... Yeah, right. Like, think for a second. Historically, marriages have mostly been about money in some form or another. That's why dowries have been a thing for so long. They're still a thing in a lot of cultures around the world because women are considered economically useless, or less useful at least. So when a husband marries them, they get like a bunch of cows or whatever because it's like, hey, thanks for taking care of this dumb bitch for me, so I no longer have to feed her.
This is ruining relationships. It's we were talking about this the other day that we're citing Jordan Peterson so often in this, but he was saying something that after 35 you better have a family because that's when things start to break down. That's
talking about Jordan Peterson the other day. He was talking about Wuhan milking factories. Did you see this? Sorry.
the were you were for that, right? Or no?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
When what things start to break down?
When you're gonna be lonely, you're gonna have no friends. Like if you don't start a family around 35, you're gonna be left out.
That's total bullshit, by the way. That's like mega giga cope, and that's some of the shit that conservatives say to try to like fearmonger, paranoia bait. People can live robust social lives at literally any age of their life. I mean, obviously, when you're like 80 or something, that is a pretty tough time to start a family and settle down. But like that's just not the case. I think that if you keep a good attitude and you know like where to go and where to look, and it's easier now than it ever has been with the internet. There's always hope to find love, right? Just go watch Step Brothers, okay? Just go watch Step Brothers.
Colloquially called The Wall. And I'm sure you've heard of it if you've been a denizen of the internet for any length of time. All women supposedly hit a wall when they're about 35. And if you don't have a family, you are going to be lonely.
Wait, hold on. The Wall's at... Wait, The Wall isn't about women being lonely. First of all, The Wall's at 30, if it did exist, which it doesn't. But if it did, they say it's at 30. And for two, it's not about being lonely. Do you think she's like 31, so she moved it to 35? Because never mind. It's about physical attractiveness, and The Wall is a concept made up by pedophiles. Okay, I literally saw a graph like this morning when I woke up of some incel being like, "Here's your sexual marketplace value over your age, whatever," and men get more hot as time goes on, and women get less hot from time goes on, and the chart said that a 15-year-old girl is more sexual marketplace value than a 31-year-old woman. That it was like a slanted bell curve where the 15-year-old and the 30-year-old were equal, and then the 31-year-old woman was lower because for after 30 it's all downhill. Actually, in that chart, it was after 23 it's all downhill. So The Wall is a concept made by pedophiles. Always has been.
And you're going to have a problem. You're not going to be able to find a good date. It doesn't matter how much money you make because that's not what men look for in a spouse.
I do think that there are exceptions to that. I agree with you for the most part. And, for me as a psychologist, again, I've sat with women, going through some really rough times, in those situations. But there are also women that they never want to get married. They never want to have kids. They have almost like, and I mean this in a loving, fond way, they have a Peter Pan type of existence. Mm-hmm. They just want to have their dog. They want to go to brunch. They make a lot of money and they're quite happy.
That's great. Okay. I'm actually so happy. I thought this was going to be like a yes, but kind of situation, but I'm actually so happy that she's just saying, yeah, it's really cool. Listen, raising kids is great, but it's a lot of work. I don't think everyone's cut out for it. If you want to be brunch and dog mom your whole life, live that shit. Hell yeah.
Don't want to give of themselves in the way that it takes to be a wife, to be a mom. So I don't want to deny that there are women for whom that actually works out.
Do you think that's a chemical imbalance, or is that just
Khan's discovering the concept of a woman happy without a man? Do you think she has perhaps a touch of the lunacy? Do you think her humors are out of alignment?
Natural.
I don't think it's a chemical imbalance. I don't know what it is, but I just wanted to just make room for the fact that while I do think it's true what Tim said for the most part, and that's definitely the majority of what I see as a psychologist, but there are women that just do their own thing.
Maybe we would just be better off if, I don't know, women had to wear red dresses and bonnets.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Well, stop it. It's funny because you've sort of
they
mentioned
can't even acknowledge what she's saying. They can't even be like, yeah, there are people that are like that, but most people they can't even acknowledge. They have to like joke around it. The idea of any woman being independent is a threat to their ideology, because like it's a biologically essentialist thing for them, right? Like their worldview necessitates the idea that literally all women biologically crave like being subservient in a patriarchal household and raising children, and anyone who doesn't has to be mentally ill or a non-existent like outlier. Like they're not real, so they can't even acknowledge that. They can't even say like, different strokes for different folks. So you can see how this like ideology is necessarily one of control and right, why they want to get rid of no-fault divorce.
Not being the exception to the rule, and Lydia brought up this idea of the wall. Part of what's so unfortunate and really stultifying to the discourse on basically everything is that people confuse making like a prescriptive claim and a descriptive claim. So,
oh shit, are we on a Vosh stream? Oh my god! Oh, all right, hold on, I'm listening now. This guy's speaking my language.
by Lydia mentioning that there does seem to be this point at which it's going to be significantly more difficult for a woman to find a partner, that she's saying that that's good. And so because of that, people are just reluctant to say that to young women. They're reluctant to share the truth with them about what could possibly await them if they don't get married before a certain point of time.
This is true. Young women are never told, hey, you need to find a guy soon. I've spoken to many women, and that is definitely something that they're not told. Of all the women I've spoken to, definitely not every single one of them has been told by like everyone around them that it's time to find a guy and settle down and have children. That's true. I agree. They're not told that enough. They're told that less than an infinite number of times.
And I think that's really horrendous. I think that's a really horrible thing to do to young women. You should tell them the realistic possibilities for their life instead of trying to claim everyone can do everything and then having them end up miserable because they had completely unrealistic expectations because of you.
My prediction is
the completely unrealistic expectation like getting a career started and then finding a guy in your early 30s and then settling? Is that like the crazy people do that? That's a real thing. That's not fake. That's a real thing that happens, like, to lots and lots of people. That's not made up. It's okay.
millennial women will not admit it. This single millennial women.
Oh no.
They're chasing their careers.
Oh
Many
no.
of them are probably doing it due to social pressures. Many of them are doing it because they really want to do it, and for that, I nothing but respect. Of the women who are not being honest with themselves and are more concerned about social pressures than what they truly would want, maybe a family, I don't
see. I respect the women who really want to pursue a career, but also there's this nebulous, undefined group of women who are lying about what they really want. Biologically, they want children, and they're lying to themselves. And I know this, but they don't.
think they'll admit it. They'll be 40 and they'll say, nope, life's great. I've never been happier. Young women will see it. They'll be 45. I love my life. I'm single and I'm living up in the big city. They're going to be 55. And they're going to say, well, it has its charm. They're going to be 60 and they're going to go to the young people and say, I've made a terrible mistake. Don't make the same mistake I did.
Yep.
But
I've never heard a 60-year-old woman say this. I have heard 15-year-old incel boys say this. Legit, in my life, I have never heard an older woman go, I made a great mistake by not settling down early. But I've heard so many guys go, yeah, there's like tons of women who like by not me or yeah, whatever, they like made big mistakes. So like you should me. I've so many times I've seen this. I want to be clear though, the thing of like people hyper focusing on career and not like developing relationships and being lonely later in life is a real thing. That's not a woman only thing. That's mostly a man thing, guys. I don't know why we're pretending this is a woman thing. The whole like dedicates himself to his career really hard and doesn't leave time for relationships. This is a guy coded trait. If anything, we should be talking to guys more, and we should be saying, listen, King, career is good and all, but make sure to like develop relationships. But no, we currently promote this like alpha Tate, what's his name? Tristan's the brother. Andrew Tate, like Sigma grindset shit, where they're like, no, actually you need to focus on women even less and focus on career even more. So in reality, what we're seeing is conservatives are hypocritically attacking women for being too career focused because it's damaging them to not be like in a relationship, but promoting ideologies for men that literally are like, yeah, don't even care about relationships, just get money. Of course, the consequence of this is a ruining of gender relations in a way that leads people to radical conservative ideology because the men are lonely and they're like, oh my God, I'm lonely. We need neo-Nazism. And the women are paternalistically accused of not knowing their own biological desires, which facilitates this like legal approach to, removing contraception or making divorce impossible without fault. You guys get what I'm saying, right?
But by that point, there's going to be a generation or two that believe the lies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think that there's such a thing as a soulmate?
No.
I've wondered this because I think that being in the wrong relationship is worse than being single, personally, from my personal experience.
Agreed.
I agree with that. I don't believe in a soulmate, but I agree with what he just said.
And so I was looking for the soulmate. I spent decades alone, lonely, and I don't know. I don't think, personally, I just can't. I think a lot of people might be waiting for the one, and that's maybe a mistake. I want
to give the gist of that famous joke that I've told before. It's the joke about the guy in the flood and he prays to the Lord for savior. Yeah. So I love this one so much. It's good. There's a flood. The guy's in his house, and the news comes on and says evacuate now. And so he prays, "Dear Lord, I've been a faithful servant. Please
I
save
know
me
this
from this
one.
flood." All of a sudden, a car pulls up.
God
They jump
helps
out and they
those
say,
who
"Quick, get
help.
in. We're getting out of here before the flood gets too bad." And he goes, "No, no, I'm not going. The Lord will save me." And they're like, "You have to come with us." And he refuses. After a few hours, the waters have risen so high, he's reached the second floor of his house. And then once again, he prays, "Oh Lord, save me. I've been a faithful servant." And a boat pulls up to the window, and they're like, "Quick, get in. We're getting out of here." And the guy says, "No, no, the Lord will save me." The waters keep rising, so he climbs up the window, goes on the roof, and then he says, "Please, please, Lord, don't let me die." Then a helicopter comes, and they're like, they throw a rope ladder down, "Quick,
Doing the full
climb
version
the rope
of the
ladder." He
joke.
goes, "No, the Lord will save me." And then they're like, "You have to," and the helicopter leaves because he won't do it. And the floodwaters rise up, and he dies. When he makes his way up to heaven, he's before God, and he says, "I don't understand. I was a faithful servant that did everything, and you let me die." And he goes, "I sent you a car, a boat, and a helicopter." But the reason I tell that joke now is, I think for you, Ian, you're saying you were single for so long because you're trying to find the soulmate. Perhaps you've already met them.
Oh, Tim, why are you doing your homie like that? Tim. Hey, remember that cute girl at the gas station who like made lingering eye contact with you after you paid for your gas, and she asked what you were doing later, and you were like, "Oh, nothing." Then you went back, and later you realized maybe she was like talking you up. It was her. You'll never meet her again. Tim!
And you just thought it was going to be something more than it really was. You assumed the soulmate would come down with wings floating down before you, when it was just some, I don't know, regular looking person who was like, "What up?"
I thought that the soulmate was going to make me better, but what I realized was I make myself better, and so she comes. She arrives, however you
Well,
want.
Well, maybe she does both. I agree with what Moonlord just said. I don't think you should get in a relationship to make you a better person. I think that's like a trap that a lot of people fall into, and it like basically never works. I think that at the most, a good relationship is like a platform to give you the energy and the care to better yourself, but it's always you that's going to do the work, and nobody else can make you better but you, right? So it's you like maybe it's like, I don't know, like working out, I guess. Like, if you want to lose weight or get fit or whatever, that's always the work you have to put in. And maybe being in a relationship can give you the energy to care, where it's like, "Oh yeah, man, well, she's slamming, so I want to be slamming." Yeah. But you're doing the work always. So people don't make you better. You make you better. Yeah. Okay. When it comes to finding a relationship, guys, are you ready for the real? Okay. Even I'm not as romantic as a lot of people are. Okay. But the God's honest truth is this. Okay. Care deeply about your friends and make lots of them. And if there's a friend who you also really like porking, and you maybe want to go grocery shopping with them, that's probably quality shit right there. That's worth giving a try. Okay? If you meet a person who you like spending time with and you like porking, unless you're ace, whatever, and you want to go grocery shopping with them, that's like a really solid start. That's like a really good, because you can't just casually enjoy the company of a person if you want to go grocery shopping with them. You have to like actively like that. You have to like look at them and go like, "Wow, I would do laundromat with this. I would pay taxes next to you." That's the good stuff. So make friends. Be good to people.
Field of Dreams approach. If you build it, they will
That's
come.
right.
You
Good
build yourself up.
approach, yeah.
I'm curious what you think of the idea of soulmates as a psychologist.
Okay, are we just...
Yeah, I don't really believe in that.
Okay, so do I skip the soulmate section? I'll finish the full video. Because we are technically talking about no-fault divorce, but I guess at this point we're just talking about the ideology behind marriage and relationships.
Nice.
So much, but yeah, I do think that there's something to be said, for, as you said, just focusing on yourself and trying to attract the right person. I think that our instant gratification society, whether it be, always the opportunity to, swipe right and, see more and constantly compare, it actually makes it harder to really fix on somebody and, settle down on somebody. Like there have even been studies that have shown when it comes to like buying peanut butter, for example, if you put a customer in an aisle with 40 different jars of peanut butter, they just won't buy one. Like they're just like, geez, do I want the crunchy or do I want the organic or do I want the, they go on and on.
This is a real thing, by the way. Even as somebody who has always basically been non-monogamous and basically polyamorous and blah, blah, blah. Like this is a real thing. Choice paralysis is a real thing. I think the best way to address this, it requires willpower. You want to throw yourself into the relationships that you're in, right? Like, don't do this disaffected thing where you're like, okay, well, there are like 3 cuties and they're all like pretty cool, but I don't want to come across as like overly involved or overly committed. Let's play our cards right. I think it's okay to be a little bit cringe when it comes to love, right? If you like somebody, then you should like really try it out with them. And if you end up liking them enough and things work out, right, the choice paralysis kind of like falls to the side, right? Like, or I'll put it this way. Choice paralysis is something that affects you when you're looking at 3 brands of peanut butter in the grocery aisle, but after you've just had a delicious sandwich, a delicious PB&J made with one of the brands, you're not, that's choice paralysis isn't a thing anymore. You go up to the counter and you're like, hey, which peanut butter did I just have the sandwich with? It's like, oh, that one? There are 2 others? Well, I want that one. That one had the delicious sandwich. Like eating the pussy. You get it. You get the analogy. The point is, like, choice paralysis fades when you commit to an option, or at least like really make an effort to understand. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're doing relationship talks today. How many people? 8,000 people. Wow. Hello. Hi. I'm glad you all are here. I've had a pretty bad couple of days for pretty obvious reasons, so it's nice to have people here.
And I think the same thing can happen like with dating, that we just feel like we have too many choices and it's hard to make one.
There was I love these studies where the study is a trick. They had people fill out a survey, and in exchange you get a free T-shirt. The study was actually the T-shirt. So these people filled out a form, and then with one group they said you get a free green T-shirt. Then with the other group they said you get your choice between red, green, or blue.
I want red.
The people after that, they were then asked how they felt about the gift. The people who were given a choice were rated it more negatively than those who weren't. The people who got a free shirt were like, cool, free shirt. The people who got the choice said, I made the wrong choice. I should have taken the blue one.
So arranged marriage.
Well,
Arranged.
Okay, right. I was about to say that. I was about to draw the comparison, but yeah, that's where this is going. Choice paralysis is a real thing, but it's also a part of being alive. Having choices and making difficult choices is part of like the texture of being an adult and being a human and being alive. It's what defines us moving forward. Like, choice paralysis is a thing, but that doesn't mean that I want like a nanny state giving me telling me what to do every step of the way, right? I think it takes a lot of confidence and charisma and strength to have a bunch of choices, but confidently make one.
You know, I have clients that have arranged marriages, believe it or not.
How does that work?
I was surprised to see that it is not like something that I thought would never happen, you know, but my practice is in New York, and I'm not really seeing clients as much actively now as I used to in the past. But I mean, there's actually a lot of people from cultures where their parents are arranging marriages, and it's not as bad as it sounds. Like, their parents are not like forcing them to get married to anybody. It's more like their parents are just like lining up.
This is such a complicated topic. I don't like arranged marriages, obviously. I have heard people in arranged marriages describe and defend them as an institution, and there are several benefits that I believe exist, but I don't think they outweigh the downsides. It's really complicated, and it also depends on how it's done. There are cultures for which an arranged marriage is basically just like total coercion for the woman. Like literally like a 15-year-old girl will just be told one day by her father, like, yeah, there's a guy in the neighboring village, and like, yeah, good luck. And that's that. And obviously this is like horrific and indefensible and essentially like a crime against humanity. Like, it's disgusting. There are like a lot of people, I would say more commonly though, especially in the West certainly, and in a lot of countries, like in India, I think, like in cities, this is far more common. An arranged marriage is more like your parents line up suitors and you're basically just like told to go on a date with them. And if things don't work out, you go home and your mom's like, ah, da da. And you're like, and they're like, okay. And they find another person, right? I was thinking of Italians for some reason. I don't know why I was thinking of Italians. I had a conversation with an Indian woman for whom it was like this. She started to be given suitors when she was 18. And it basically just meant that her mom and dad were like, look at him. He's such a nice guy. Oh my goodness. Look at his hair. Ooh, go on date. Go on date with him. Go. And then they would go and get like a lunch together and like, you know, sort of pleasantly get along. And the guy would be aware of the artificiality of the situation, so he wasn't that pushy. Like, basically he would be like, you know, oh yeah, yeah, well, you know, I guess our parents are friends. Do you like do you like shawarma? And it's, you know, and they would talk for a bit. And if, you know, things seem nice, then they would talk more. And if not, then they would end pretty quickly. And that happened a couple of times. And eventually they found someone they liked. They ended up getting married. And I will say this. I don't necessarily think it's bad to have your friends and family involved in choosing like a range or like suggesting suitors. But it really depends on if you have good family and friends, right? And it depends if the system is good. Because if this manifests as like horrible abusive parents pushing people on you, then that's awful. But if you have supportive parents who are just like, friend of friending you, like literally doing the like, hey, I found you a job by talking to this guy at the bar kind of dealio, like, then I think that can be like a good in because you're benefiting from a larger social circle than you have on your own. And that can be good, I think. Yeah, it's just one of those situations where I can't endorse it at all because I know it can go bad in so many ways. But I do know people have had good experiences with what they call arranged marriages. As long as by arranged marriage, what we're referring to are like your family suggesting playing matchmaker, that kind of thing. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I'm over talking on this one, but yeah, it's complicated. It really is.
First dates for them essentially, and some of the clients that I would have that didn't have that happening for them, they would be like, I kind of wish my parents would do that for me, because it tends to happen, obviously not with all, but like in the Jewish communities and with the people who have.
Oh, that's true. I know a Jewish girl in high school for whom this happened as well. Yeah, Orthodox Jewish.
From India,
Yep.
They tend to have that happen more often.
Yeah.
At least in just my colloquial observations.
Those sound like blind dates. They're setting up blind dates.
Yeah, basically blind dates. Yeah.
But that's different than saying you're marrying this person now. That
You're
met yet.
right. It's arranged marriage opportunities. Like where they're setting up blind dates with somebody who's marriage minded. But you're right. It's not like they're just saying, hey, go meet your husband.
And also,
if my family set me up for a blind date and we ended up really liking each other and getting married, I don't know if I would feel comfortable calling that an arranged marriage. Like, that was literally just my family suggested somebody, and I saw them, and we hit it off. But the chemistry was all us, right? Like, all my parents did in that case would have been, like, suggest a person. I don't know if I could call... That's not, like, an arranged marriage. I guess this is, like, the liberal, like, watered-down version of an arranged marriage. I mean... It's that element of it sounds nice, I think, in abstract, in some cases. All right. Just happy when people are happy.
So in most arranged marriages, the person has the option to not marry. It's not like the parents go, you have to marry this person. Like, they pick someone, and then they get to know them, and then if they don't want to, they do get the final say, yeah.
But I think a lot of
Not all the time, obviously. In certain cultures, that's not the case.
I think a lot of cultures, they can just say no, but then the parents are like, don't do this. Like, we've worked hard at this.
Cultural
So
pressure.
there's pressure for sure.
Right.
That makes sense.
But it used to be with arranged marriages where, like, the dad would go to the dad of the daughter and be like, how much money do I get? We're doing this.
Dowries.
Yeah.
Dowries and land grants and
Yeah.
things like that. That's why a lot of the royal families were doing it all.
100%. Well, one of the
That's
things
still
that
really
I noticed
common.
in that conversation about arranged marriage is that both parties are going into it with the understanding that they are dating for marriage. It's something we don't have anymore.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And not only dating for marriage, right, but giving up this idea that there is a quote-unquote soulmate. I think it's a really toxic and destructive idea that there's going to be someone who will come along and you'll just have an effortlessly good relationship. That's not going to be true about friendships or relationships, like any kind of relationship that you have. And so
I don't like the idea of dating for marriage at all. That sounds really psychotic to me. I feel like if you know somebody and you like them and you want to spend time with them and you want to date them, that's great, right? But I feel like the marriage thing, that's such a complicated commitment. That's such a big thing. The idea of doing tryouts for marriage from the get-go, like day one, like, oh, I met this person, now we're going to try to see if we want to marry each other. Like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's putting the cart before the horse. I feel like the marriage question should be answered after a bunch of other questions, like, do we get along well together even if we're having a bad day? Stuff like that, I guess it can vary. People have different expectations. I've always felt, for me, the most psychotic rule has always been you can't sleep with a person / you can't live with a person until you're married, because that shit is insane. You do not know if you like a person until you've lived in their house. It's so different. Meeting a person for like a date where they dress up and it's like a whole thing, like anyone can put on a good face for that, man. Living with a person is totally different. For me, the hallmark of like a good, and you can see this, by the way, with roommates. Guys, ever had a good friend who ended up being a bad roommate? This is like such a common thing. People are so different when you just have them at home. Being like wanting to be next to a person like at home is so different from wanting to go out for expensive food for 3 hours on one day once a week. It's so different. Also, like the idea that you shouldn't pork before marriage is super dumb. Obviously, the internet is littered with older married couples who are both miserable because they have no sexual compatibility. This isn't even me being like a liberal, lefty, haha, namana. Like, it's the idea of marrying before seeing if you have any sexual compatibility is just insane. It's so silly, but, you know, whatever.
So it makes sense that in our culture, we would think that because, as you mentioned, we're all about instant gratification. So yes, of course I'm going to meet someone who just like bends to my will and everything, which people don't admit, but that's kind of what they say when they want a soulmate. I want someone who isn't going to require that I change anything about myself or give anything to, and who is just like effortlessly pleasurable to be with.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast.
Oh, hi, Tim. I don't like the idea of soulmates. Okay, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, right. What were we talking about? Yeah, so basically conservatives want to ruin everything and destroy your happiness forever, okay? I think that's what we were getting at. Don't let them, okay? They will take my no-fault divorce from my cold dead hands, okay? I will divorce 5 women a day, 5 women a second. I'm ready. Nobody in the entire King County of Seattle will be able to get any kind of marrying done because I will take up all of their clerks with my constant divorces. I'll be like Saul Goodman in the goddamn courthouse running around in a suit with a crazy tie. Clerk to clerk. They're all going to know me on a first-name basis. Yeah, Matt's been on this for a while. If we really want to protect the sanctity of marriage, we'd start... Whoa, no, I don't want to go to Matt Walsh. No! Ew. We'd start by abolishing no-fault divorce. I actually agree with gay activists that many Christians are cowards for complaining about gay marriage but condoning rampant divorce. People are scandalized with this opinion, but wait till they find out I also think no-fault divorce should be abolished. Oh, that's in response to this one. Hot take, it's actually totally normal and healthy for Kanye West to be extremely, even obsessively angry about the fact that his wife is shacking up with another man. It is, in fact, the most normal thing about him. This is especially funny considering the fact that it was a Jew with a 9-inch dick porking Kim that ended up making Kanye into Hitler. That's very funny. Literally, like the arc, right? Like, it was that guy, yeah, and he had a huge dick, and then he became a Nazi, and then he saw 21 Jump Street. Now he's not a Nazi. Of course, Kanye's also shacking up with someone else, so he doesn't have much room to talk. You can hit him for the hypocrisy, but the anger, resentment, etc. is all pretty normal. Well, that's curious. Why is Kanye obsessively angry, stalking Kim, but Kim's just trying to live her own life? That's curious. So if both of them are engaging in infidelity, why is Kim just trying to get away from Kanye, but Kanye is simultaneously engaging in infidelity while stalking Kim? That's curious. I wonder if there's something to say here about what conservatives feel masculinity is, and how there's like a fundamental double standard. Also, I don't think you should stalk your ex, even if she's porking someone else, because stalking is weird. I think that you should deal with those feelings the way God intended, by opening up a MySpace account and posting lyrics to songs that you like that express your feelings. I think that that is the channel that God gave us for difficult emotions. And I think that Kanye should do that. I don't even know if you can open a MySpace account anymore. I assume you can. I would probably remember if they had shut down MySpace. If you guys ever want a trip, by the way, go look at a YouTube video from 2007 or whatever about people like browsing their MySpace pages. It's pretty wild. It's basically the closest you can get to playing Hypnospace Outlaw in real life right now because GeoCities isn't a thing anymore. Truly wild stuff. Love opening up one of my classmates' pages and getting instantly blasted with music. Play Hypnospace Outlaw.